Good evening and welcome to Open Your Mind Internet Radio. You have myself, Alan James.
And you have myself, Stephen George. Very good evening.
Good evening. It's Sunday the 7th of October 2012 and we have our guest in the studio tonight. So, which is a bit of a change and have a bit of fun. So before we get on, obviously we're going to go through the communication channels first, Steve.
Absolutely. Communication channels are as follow. info@oymireland.com for your emails during the show. We also have the guest book on the website if you fancy leaving a message there for this generation, future generations on the internet. And we also have the guest book, the chat facility. So if you're listening to us and you want to join in, maybe ask some questions, excuse me, you can navigate to OYMIreland.com and just click the big button that says live chat. Log in with your real name or a pseudonym and you will be in, and you'll be on the hotline, so to speak. And lastly, if you want to give us a call on the telephone, you can
give us a call on 046 927 1212.
046 927 1212. If you're ringing from outside the Republic of Ireland, it'll be 00353 in front of that. Alan.
Right, Steve. Okay, our guest tonight is a chap called Deg Geraghty, who's a Reiki healer, light worker and Raeilan member. And we mentioned this last week. So we're going to be finding out a bit more about that. Deg is actually with us in the studio. We can say, you wave to Deg. His microphone's down at the moment, but he's keen to get on. So we'll move on and go through the bits and pieces first, and we'll crack on from there. Just to let our listeners know that Marcus McEwen's book is available on the website to purchase, and people have been coming on to the site and buying the book and giving us great feedback on the content in the book. So if you haven't got the book, we urge you to get it because it's great information dealing with the banks and what to do there. Also, you want to talk about registration, Steve?
Absolutely, yeah. Alan is a gatherer of information, and he generally sends out some good information emails to the registered users throughout the week, and it's kind of stuff that we found out and we want to share with you, the listener. So to avail of that service, just log into the website and just register basically, and you will get the newsletter as it goes out. It could be once a week, it could be a couple of times a week, but it's always good information. And as always, we don't censor the information. Whatever we get in, Alan will generally kind of go through it. If he feels it might be of interest, he just sends it out there, and nothing is censored. So registration is free.
Brilliant, Steve. Okay, just a couple of things we're going to go through. We had an email in from one of our listeners regarding the Gmail, and when we send out email through the registered users, sometimes Gmail sends it into your junk mail folder or spam folder. So just to be aware that if you are registered and you're not getting any email, just check your junk mail folder or your spam folder. Chances are the email will probably be in there. So just keep that in mind when you're checking your email. Now, the other thing is, obviously we had John Moore on the show last week, which was very interesting, loads of information from John. And just a couple of things we caught up regarding John. He found out from his research, he was saying that there's 66 volcanoes in various stages of eruption around the globe. We also have had 5 7.0 plus earthquakes in the last 45 days. So to say there is no significant increase in seismological events would just be ignorant at this point. Immediately the science trolls will state things like, we are still within historical ranges, do not worry. But unfortunately, the leaders throughout the world have cancelled trips and meetings. Why? You have to ask yourself, why? Have they gone to their underground bunkers in preparation for World War III or a global economic collapse, which will result in martial law and civil unrest? I know I was watching a video during the week and the person was looking at the movements of Barack Obama, and when you look at his diary, the few days, there was a good few days where there was nothing penciled in. Not at all. Now you'd think, being the president, you'd have a lot of things booked in and penciled in, but there was nothing in there. So, and there's a few other people missing who are, high ranking, and they have been missing. So, we have to keep an eye on these people and find out where they're actually, where they're going. But, Steve, we had a... Sorry.
So we're going to play a game called Spot the Politician here in the Republic of Ireland. If you see a politician, nab him and ask him where he's going and where he's going to be on particular dates.
Yeah, we're going to start tracking them now instead of them tracking us.
Absolutely.
We have to do that. And we had a nice email in during the week, Steve.
Yes, we had a lovely email in during the week from a lady who has recently discovered the show. She said she's a third-year student and she's studying a particular subject. She came across our website in September, and she goes on to say she's very grateful that she actually did discover OYM. The information we provide, she says, she's read it again and again, and she wishes everybody could see this information. She found it so true and so powerful. She feels that the information is being really cruelly suppressed, and she says open your mind has led her onto further research she didn't even think was possible. She recently watched a presentation by Jason Verbelli on secrets of magnets and hidden sciences, and she says such exciting sciences to explore. So basically she just kind of wrote a lovely email to say thank you for OYM for kind of paving the road for her journey.
Fantastic. And it's great, any email that comes in, good or bad, we'll read it and then we'll have a look if there's anything we can do with it, if people aren't happy. But it's great getting, positive feedback as well from people. If, our radio show has opened you up or you've learned something for it, or you go to the website and find something out. And it's nice to hear if that's the case, so let us know.
Absolutely. I think the only bad email we ever got was that the sound level wasn't good, and we sorted that out.
Oh no, we had another email because we had a sense of humour.
From that chap in the I think it's somewhere in the the deep south in the US of A. Yeah, he didn't like our sense of humour. Yeah,
we had a sense of humour. So but we're not going to apologise for that, because if you don't have a sense of humour, you just go the other way, really, wouldn't you? Get stressed.
Absolutely.
How's your week?
We don't need stress.
No, we don't need stress.
My week, Alan, has been, as I always say, the usual mix of fun and frolics. However, during the week, I think I followed one of the links that you sent us over, sent out to the registered user, and I kind of hopped on that link, and a couple of YouTube videos later, I found myself watching a documentary called For the Greater Good. And this documentary, it is available on YouTube if you just type in For the Greater Good. It's about 2 hours long. And it's all about vaccines, and there are people who will think, oh yeah, because OYM said it's obviously all the bad stuff about vaccines. Well, actually, this one was kind of middle of the road, and I was very surprised that they had people on from both sides, and each side of the camp was kind of given equal amounts of airtime, so to speak, and the information that was portrayed by the end of the 2 hours. I was firmly on one side of I was kind of over there anyway, but I won't say I was anti-vaccine, but I was, I think we need to maybe look more into what's in these vaccines. But it's a fantastic documentary. There was a few things like that I did not know or wasn't aware of vaccines, and what's that lady's name? Barbara Lowe Fisher. She's a great activist there in the US of A, and she has been fighting this for a long time and trying to educate people over there. And she's making some progress, but she is meeting a lot of resistance as well, and she has come up against brick walls in relation to Congress with the information that she is kind of providing. But it's a fantastic documentary. I could talk about it, I could tell you all about it, but it'll probably take 2 hours, so I won't do that. I will urge everyone after the show, not during the show now, after the show, stick it into Google or into YouTube For the Greater Good, and have a look at that. It's definitely one worth watching. And I'm sorry, but that's the crux. That's basically it. That's my week in a nutshell. How was your week?
That's your week. Oh, well, but there's a few things that went on during the week. What do you think of the exposure of Jimmy Savile?
Well, do you know what? It's amazing. When that came along, we heard about that a long time ago.
Bill Maloney,
Pie and Mash Films. That's right. Bill kind of mentioned that to us, and even when Bill mentioned it, you said you were aware of it. You'd heard it before. I hadn't. It was kind of new to me. And like everything else, you hear it and you kind of you put it in that little box in the back of your mind, your box. And now, when you told me that the documentary was going to be on national TV, and I haven't seen it yet, believe it or believe it not, I haven't seen it yet, but I've heard that it was quite good. And as I expected, there was a lot of people who came out after the documentary, and they probably still didn't believe it. I'd say it opened a lot of people's minds as well. But yeah, when you think about it, it was covered up for a long time. But the information was out there, and I think David Icke mentioned it as well a couple of years back as well.
That's right.
And he was slaughtered for how dare he say this about Jimmy Savile MBE.
Well,
true.
Need I say Jimmy Savile was involved with the Knights of Malta, the same with the Prince, what's his name? Philip.
Prince Philip,
he's a Knights of Malta as well. Enough said. Need I say any more?
Nope.
And it's all coming out now. The Hope de la Grain and all that stuff is now coming out. And obviously Jimmy Savile's dead now. There's nothing they can really do. But yes, we did know about it. The other thing was we just put up sent out a link, I think, to everybody, all the registered users. Ben did a video on YouTube regarding a chap that had psoriasis. And he shows his two arms, and he puts the two arms up to the camera, and one arm was treated with MMS for 3 to 4 days, and the other arm wasn't treated with MMS. And you can see the difference straight away with just in a few days of using MMS.
That was fantastic.
That was fantastic. So if you suffer from psoriasis, have a look at this video, but obviously get your hands on MMS. Because what an improvement. If it can do that, then fantastic.
Although I would like to see a follow-up video, maybe. I mean, that was 3 or 4 days, maybe a week or 2 weeks or even a month down the line. That would be good.
Yeah, no, definitely. That would be a good idea. Maybe you mention that to Vin, and we get a follow-up video to that. The other thing that I put up on our YouTube channel was I came out of the house this morning, and the sky was just full of chemtrails. Literally, the sky was covered in them. So I took a video of the chemtrails and I put the video up on our YouTube channel. So if you pop along later on to our YouTube channel, and you can have a look at just the chemtrails, the sky was just full of them, line after line. And even when I stopped filming, there was more aircrafts coming over, actually spraying the chemtrails. So again, phenomenal what they're doing with the chemtrails.
And did you notice as well that sometimes when you see these chemtrails going over, I know we mentioned it before, if you go on to planefinder.net, it actually tells you the plane, it'll give you the details of the plane that's currently flying over wherever you may be, and it'll also give you loads of information, that its identification, the squawk, what kind of plane it is, and all this sort of carry on. But it's funny, sometimes when chemtrails are being sprayed and you go on to planefinder.net, it doesn't actually, it's not registered. Or if it is, there's absolutely no details in relation to that plane.
Yeah, we just got Lord Vapor asking what video. Yes, Lord Vapor, if you go to OYM Ireland.com and click on our YouTube logo, it brings you to the channel, and it'll just say chemtrails in County Meath. The video is there, you won't be able to miss it, and you can just have a look at them yourself there. Now, we did get a comment from a person who actually looked at the video, and they seem to know something about the cycle of chemtrails. They said this is the 5th spraying of cycle 1 or something like that on the email that we got.
All right.
So it was interesting that they knew there was some kind of cycle that had to be done. But I'm just going to the last thing here that I have down is, I don't know whether the listeners seen it. Ian Crane posted up a video of the riots over in Madrid, and when I say riots, I don't really mean riots. It's people fighting for their freedom, and these guys
fighting or standing up for their freedom.
Well, standing up for their freedom, and the police beating the hell out of them with truncheons. And it's just, I really looked at that and I just said, I'm ashamed to be human, because of what they were doing. They were literally, all people were doing was standing up for their rights, and the police were wading in with their batons and just beating the hell out of them. And these are, mindless drones. They really, really are. And I wouldn't mind, but then police are going to be, well, they'll suffer as well.
Of course they will.
They're going to suffer as well. So, but just before we bring in Deg, I just want to go through the chat here. We got a few things there. We talked to Lord Vapor there when we said about the guy that we had the sense of humour. Lord Vapor said Sadgit. Yeah, he might be a Sadgit, alright, I don't know. And so Lord Vapor, the videos chemtrails on the YouTube channel. And anything else there going through? No, just keep chatting on the chat facility, and if there's any questions that you have, Deg, when we bring him in, by all means, give us a shout, ask him a question.
Did you see the one there up at the top of the chat in relation to Geraghty to buy 1 million rounds of ammo? And then there's a link, I'm guessing that because the link is independent, it was obviously in the independent. Why would the Geraghty need 1 million rounds of ammo?
Why would the Geraghty need 1 million rounds of ammo? Well, I don't know. Maybe we can have a chat about
seeing any
that.
bears in the woods. No.
No, definitely not. Definitely not, unless there will be. Okay, well listen, we're going to bring in our guest now. Now Deg is in the studio with us here, and we'd like to say good evening, Deg. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you, and thanks very much for the invite. And it's great to be here, and thank you very much for all the work that you're doing on our behalf.
No problem at all, no problem at all. Well, we have to say that myself and you have known each other for a bit of time now, haven't we? A few years.
Too many years that we care to mention.
Too many years.
Yes.
And we kind of met because we have an interest in opening your mind and talking about the bigger thing.
That's true. We met, I forget what the introduction was. It was on a website that we logged on to, and you were there, and we arranged to meet. And it was about spiritualism and the spiritual self and stuff like that. And then we just got talking, and we got on very well. And it was as a result of a book that I had read on, I can't think of the woman's name now. She was an English woman who was into spiritualism, and she was into the spiritual church and stuff like that. And then when we met, we discovered that we had a whole lot of other interests. And at the time I was involved in the Raeilan movement, and you were very interested in that, and we just got on and chatted. And then the Open Your Mind concept started and began, and we got chatting, and we found out that an awful lot of the stuff that I knew you had come across as well, and we exchanged notes and stuff like that, and it was just amazing. And this is how most information is given to one another, but just sitting down and talking freely and speaking your mind. And it's important that we all speak our mind, and that any information we have, we give freely, and we get out there. And it's not that we're trying to convert anybody to any illicit means or doing anything illegal or anything like that. We're just saying, no, this is wrong, this is the way it should be, and let's change the system where we see it's wrong.
Yeah, exactly. Well, before we go down any route and talk about anything, let's talk about your awakening, because what we normally generally do with our guests is say, you obviously went from A to B, but how did you get to B? What was your awakening? What made you wake up? What did you see that woke you up?
I can't say there was any one given moment of a eureka moment, as they say, but like most people in this country, I would have been educated in the Catholic upbringing. I would have been brought up a good Catholic Christian by my parents, and in a lovely, loving environment, and educated by the Christian Brothers, and then did everything as we do in Ireland through the church and the family of the church and everything like that. But then in my sort of mid to late 20s, I started to see things were wrong, and the way people were being treated was wrong and stuff like that. And then as you come across people and they tell you their stories about the injustices in their society, and how they had a different concept of understanding of religion and how they were treated in the religious upbringing and stuff like that. And then I began to question. And about my mid-30s then, I said, no, this isn't for me anymore, and I began a journey of searching, and I went down the road of Buddhism and Hinduism and all of atheism, Muslim, all of the other main religions and stuff like that. And I said, yeah, okay, that's fine. And then I sort of said, well, these are basically all the same, and they all go back to the same source, or they've come from the same source, and they're going the same way. And then my children were a great source of inspiration to me, because sometimes, and children have a great balancing effect, like when they grow up and you're teaching them when they're below their teens, in their 5s and 6s and 7s and 8s, and then suddenly they become teenagers, and that's an eye-opener in itself, because then they start talking back to you, and you sort of question your own understanding of things and your own belief structure. And you say, no, this is what we do, and this is the way we do it, and don't be asking silly questions like that. But then after a while, they're very persistent, and they keep on coming back and asking you more questions. And you sort of say, well, maybe there's something here, and maybe is it a teacher they have in school or something like that? And then you pick up a book and you read it. So my eureka moment came in the late 90s. And I was in town with my wife, and we were just browsing in Eason's and bookstores and stuff like that, and I came across this book, The Final Message, which I sort of picked up, and I said, yeah, okay, aliens, beings from another planet, yeah, okay, right, that's not for me, and I put it down. But then after about 5 minutes I was back on that same spot again. I picked it up again, and there was this thing about a racing driver, and he'd had a eureka moment, and he met aliens from a different planet, and I put the book down again. I said, no, that's not for me. And but to make a long story short, my wife came over then, and she picked up the book, and she says, are you buying this? And she said, it's only £1. And I said, sure, for £1 I can't go wrong. And I bought it, and I brought it home, and I didn't do anything with it, and I had it on the shelf at home for maybe 6 months, and then one evening I sat down and I started to read it. I was obviously bored, and but I couldn't put the book down, and about 4 o'clock in the morning she came down and she said, listen, are you not going to bed? I said, no, I'll be up in a minute, just have to finish this book. And what are you reading?
Is this the Claude Rael book?
This is Claude Rael,
okay,
yeah. This is The Final Message. Okay. And then I was hooked, and I wanted to find out more. And that's when my message into the Raeilan movement began. And but that didn't stop me sort of searching and looking for other things. But that was my eureka moment into the Raeilan movement.
Okay, and tell us, for people who don't know what the Raeilan movement is and what was involved. I mean, I kind of touched base on it last week, and generally there's this guy called Claude Rael, who's a motor racing driver, and he's French. He had an experience. He came across a UFO in France, and they spoke to him, they took him on board, and they told him loads of stuff, and he came back. And do you want to fill in the blanks?
Yep, that's it. You have it in essence. Claude was a racing driver, and he was also an author of a racing magazine and a publisher. And he had this life-changing experience whereby he was guided to go up into the mountains one day to an old disused volcano in the middle of France. And there, out of the middle of nowhere, a UFO came down beside him, and he was amazed and flabbergasted and frightened. So,
but let me just clarify this. This is what he says. This
is his story.
It hasn't been verified.
There has been no independent verification of this event. He was on his own.
Okay, so this is, I'd say, subjective.
It's subjective
for him.
From him, yes.
From his point of view,
yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
Just to clarify that, because obviously, we have to be careful that if it hasn't been witnessed by other people or there's no record of it, then it's just what he says. Okay.
Mm-hmm. All of his teachings would be what he says and what his experiences are. And, most authors who write on subjects like this would only have their own experience. There wouldn't always be a witness there or something like that.
Yeah.
So that, anything that I say, it's his story as told to me as I'm now telling to you.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. So, he tells us then that he had an encounter with these beings from a different planet, and they took him on board and basically told him the story of the creation of humanity. So the story as he tells us is that the Elohim are the people he was talking to, and that they created life on Earth 25,000 years ago, and that the DNA that they used was a manipulation of their own genes and other genes that they brought from different planets, and there's life on other planets in our worlds, or off worlds, and that through the manipulation of DNA that they were able to create humanity as we know it today. So that if you go from there, just skip forward to what we were taught, and the Bible and the teaching of the Bible, that this is possibly what is referred to in the Bible as the Garden of Eden, where the creationists came in the hands of God and created Adam, and then it created Eve. So that in the Bible they told us that God first created Adam, and then from a rib created Eve. Or was it the other way around?
No, they created Adam.
Yes.
And then there is a joke in there, but I won't say it.
Okay.
but that's a Christian joke. And then from the rib of Adam, they created Eve.
Yes, that's what it is. So that the Elohim will maintain, okay, that in essence is true, but that what was written, and you always have to bear in mind, like, who wrote it. It's written in the Bible, it's written in, and then who organized the Bible to be written, because it was never published at the time of its conception. It was always published years, probably hundreds of years afterwards. So that they then told them, okay, the Bible in essence is factually incorrect in some of its thesis. And they went on then to tell Rael what their understanding of the creation of humanity was, or is. So that all life on earth was created at that time, 25,000, 26,000 years ago. And that at various times they have come back to visit us, and they have sent various prophets. And the prophets that they have sent, as well as Jesus, would have been Muhammad, would have been Buddha, and would have been some of the other prophets that have set up various religions. And that their mission was to create a human existence on this planet, and then to leave them alone, and to see exactly where they were going wrong. But sometimes they did mistakes, and they sent people down to help them in the form of angels. And if you go back to the Bible and stuff like that, most of the messages that we always get are from angels who come down from the heavens. Well, who's to say that the angels that came down from the heavens weren't beings and flying saucers? And if you go back at the old scriptures and the drawings going back to the 11th, 12th, 13th century, you will see emblems and effigies of flying saucers in holy scriptures and stuff like that. So, I mean, they weren't invented in 1974 when Rael had this encounter. They've always been there. Now, some people would say, well, maybe Rael just made all this up from what maybe he did. But it's a different way of looking at things. So, this is the road that I took at the time. I went down this road, and there's a saying that it is your truth, it is your understanding. It may not be everybody else's truth or everybody else's understanding. So at that time in my life, it was good for me, and it was my understanding. But as well as being my truth, it actually broadened my horizons. It brought me to the understanding of the universe as I think today.
I know what you mean. Now, being kind of open your mind and the way I am, I'm very inquisitive, and obviously the information you had and we talked about it was very interesting. Now, I have obviously no interest in going down the Raeilan route or anything like that. However, I found the information to be fantastic information. I read the book. You gave me a copy of the book. Thanks for that. And I read the book, and I did find the book fascinating. I did find the information in it fascinating. And if that was true, if that did happen, then it's very, very interesting. Unfortunately, we can't substantiate whether it's true or not, because it's only his opinion. But I did find the book very interesting. There's a lot of good information in there. And he talks about Elohim. And this is not the first time we came across the story that we were actually created. I mean, if you even look at the whole Adam and Eve story, I mean, we had Lloyd Poyon, who talks about the Star Child. They found a skull, 900 years old. They've proven that it's not human. So, and then we have Darwin's theory of evolution. Some people say we have the missing link, other people say we don't have the missing link. And then we have the whole kind of Anunnaki thing, 450,000 years ago. The trouble is, and I was kind of thinking about this today, and I said I must talk about it on the show. There always seems to be, and this is nothing got to do with having to go to the Raeilan movement, but everybody seems to have their own story. You know, when you have people who talk to the Galactic Federation or talk to spirits or talk to angels or whatever, but they never match. They never kind of tie up to, you know, some people will say we were told this by somebody and then somebody else. That's what we kind of come across for OYM, and this is why we're always sitting on the fence. Because you'll have your Drakes and your Tolaks and your, you know, a load of other people. You have the Galactic Federation and all these people who are talking about what's going to happen or what may happen. But a lot of the time they're contradicting each other. Now, if these are from the same race or the same group of people, maybe not, then surely they would be singing off the same hymn sheet. You know, that's the only thing. So, although the book I found very interesting and what Claude says and what he says about the Elohim and stuff like that, I have my skeptical hat on, as I always do. I found the information very interesting, but the whole kind of him starting the whole movement based on no evidence really bar what he says, you know, it's kind of, I'd be a bit skeptical on that one, but I take your point where you learned an awful lot from it. It opened your mind to other things to research, and if that opens your mind, well then, you know.
Yeah, it's primarily, I mean, if you look at, I agree with most of what you said there, and not everybody has the gift of having witnesses at their time. Like, I mean, did Jesus have witnesses to some of the events that he said happened? And when he went off into the desert and he came back and he preached and stuff like that, did he have witnesses and stuff like that? So no, I mean, it's his word, and sometimes we take people on face value. And what I learned from my time with the Raeilan movement was that it, as well as opening my mind to different thoughts and different understandings, and I think once you make a decision in your own self that you're not accepting the dogma that was handed down to you from birth, and that you're now in a position to make your own understanding on where you've come from and where you're going, well, then you question everything, and you're right to question everything.
Yeah, definitely, yeah.
And I mean, I stayed in the Raeilan movement for 7 years, and then I took a step back because I found that it wasn't for me anymore, that it couldn't give me all that I wanted. And now that, to go back to what you're saying there, one of the mistakes that people make is that they take everything that people say either with a hint of truth or a hint of laughter or some other type of thinking, and you know, they want to down people as soon as they say something, or they want to criticize. If somebody says something, they want to criticize it. And then when people are given a message, they don't always give that message in the right way, or they mightn't do it as they should do. And if you look at all the religious organizations, you will see a pattern there where one individual takes over and his ego or her ego takes over. And the ego is the biggest fault that we as humanity have.
Agreed.
And if we can overcome the ego and just give our understanding of what is going on, and that's what brought me into the spiritual side of myself and the spiritual side of who I am and what I am. And that's when I decided that I didn't want to be part of an organization anymore, that I wanted to be me. And it's not in a selfish sort of a way, but that I learned that to become one with myself, to become one with unity, to be, just to be. Some people say that, to be. Well, what is to be? But just to be comfortable with yourself, to be comfortable with your understanding. And then from there, I found Reiki, and I found meditation. Now, the Raeilan movement did actually teach me meditation, and that meditation I still do to this day, and I find it great. And maybe sometime I'll do a talk on meditation and how to meditate properly, because an awful lot of people go down the road of meditation, and they say, well, just sit here quietly for a while and suck in the energies and see what happens. But there's more to it than that. We have to tune into our body. We have to tune into our chakras. We have to balance our chakras. And there's a method and a means of doing it. Because we are a shell, but we are vessels, but we're a hollow vessel. And that vessel that we are has to be in tune with the environment that we're in. And that's the essence of Reiki, that you come along and you tune yourself into the earth. You tune yourself into the frequency. It's like tuning in a radio to a particular radio station. Like you have all the stations on a radio dial, but you can only listen to one of them at the same time. So Reiki puts you in tune with yourself, puts you in tune with your environment, and puts you in tune with the people around you. And this is where then the concept of consciousness and mass consciousness comes into it. And that we are all conscious beings, but we're all connected. And the connectivity of humanity, it's what's important. And from there, then you open it out and you say, when I feel pain, you feel pain. When I'm happy, we are all happy. And to get to, there's one key then which sort of unites all of us together, and this is love.
Yeah.
And love is a very important factor. And love is the key to everything. And love is the factor of understanding.
Well, funny you should say that, and we're going to talk about Reiki. I was talking to Steve the other day about this because obviously I've been studying energy for the last few months now. I've been really focusing on energy, but I've been looking at the science behind love and fear, because there are only two emotions, love and fear. And they talk about this wave that's coming in, and it's going to reactivate DNA that's in us. Now, we have something like 64 strands of DNA, and there's only 20 active, something like that. And they looked at the actual vibration of the fear, the negative, the fear side of DNA. And on the strands of DNA, the waveform that went through the DNA missed some of the DNA. Hence why we live in a fear-based society. We all are worried about things, are fearful about things. So we're missing. So we can't activate the extra DNA we have because we're living in fear. And then they showed you the vibration of love. And all the DNA strands were linked by this wave. The whole lot. And all the DNA was active. And they said that's why we can't reach the higher levels, to activate the higher levels of the DNA, because we live in a fear-based society. So, for me, understanding energy and the flow of energy is very important. And I have experienced that myself. You could say, is it subjective? Well, it was for me, but other people have experienced energy dealing with Reiki. And we know about the 7 primary chakras in the body, and there are computers. And if they're out of balance in the body, that's why you're ill or dis-ease, because you're at unease with your body. And a Reiki healer, as you can talk to us about, retunes them chakras back in to be harmonized with your body. Do you want to tell us about the actual process? Yeah,
before I do that, I just pick up on what you said there, and I mean, it's true that, love is the key, and love is a vibration. It's an essence, and if we are in fear all the time, we're not in tune with everything else around us. And in a fear-based society, the people who control us try and keep us in that fear, because then we can't reach outside, we can't reach this collective consciousness, we can't communicate collectively with one another. Whereas if we're in love, we can. And because if we're in love, we're in harmony, and we can't, you know yourself, when you actually fall in love, there's this emotion that grips you.
That energy, that really
energy, yeah.
You're like on a high, aren't you?
Yeah, it just grabs you in the stomach, and you have this burning feeling in your stomach. When you're in love, it's a wonderful, fantastic feeling. And anybody who's ever been in love, and I hope every one of the listeners that are listening have been in love at one stage. So that is the feeling that I'm talking about. Even if it's the love of your parents, if it's the love of a sibling, if it's the love of the person that you're actually in love with.
Or a pet or something like that.
Yeah, a pet or something like that, or that emotion that you can actually give. And you will do anything for somebody out of love. And you will help them out of love. And this is what Reiki is trying to do, is trying to put you in this state of love with yourself and those people around you and Mother Earth. Because Mother Earth is a vibrating being as well, and the energies that come out of Mother Earth, if we're not in sync with the energies coming out of Mother Earth, well then we're not in sync with ourselves. And an awful lot of that has got to do as well with the foods that we eat and the water, and not the water that we eat. And being in a vibrational tone with everything around us is very important. You hit on the chakras and balancing the chakras. The chakras are very important. And if they're in balance, then our body is in balance. Because if you have a bell and you hit that bell with the clapper, it's going to tone, and depending on the thickness of the material and stuff like that, it's going to tone to a different vibration. Well, we are toning to the vibration of the frequency of Earth. And if we're out of tune with that, well then we're not at ease with ourselves, and that's where you said disease comes in, because that is, you're not at ease, so disease comes in. And an awful lot of the diseases that we have today are probably as a result of not being balanced, of not eating the right foods, of not being in love, and being in fear. So that if we can overcome all of those concepts and be in love, then we're sort of halfway there. And the energies that are coming in at the moment are fantastic. I know we're going all over the place at the moment because, I mean, there's only 2 hours, so we need sort of 2 weeks to go through everything.
But that's the show. That's what we do. We just throw it out there. And we kind of, you know, that's just what we do. So don't worry about it, you know. So,
I mean, to try and talk about the energies that are coming in.
We do it, you know, it won't be comprehensive. We do a condensed version.
Yes, exactly, yeah. So, I mean, if they have any questions afterwards, we'll try and answer them all. But the Earth is vibrating to frequency, and our job is to try and vibrate to that frequency. The more greens, the more vegetables, the more water we drink, the more energy from the Earth we actually take in. That's the first key. Then, to be in love with ourselves. And the first person you have to love is yourself, because if you don't have love, you can't give love. And that's the main thing. You have to be in love with yourself and love yourself. And even when we were being brought up and when we were reared, we weren't always taught that.
I suppose, but not in a kind of narcissistic way.
No, we were sort of saying, you know, you're all about yourself, but sometimes we have to be about ourselves.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think it's a fine line. I think you have to be self-awareness and knowing that, you know, you have to love yourself but before others will love you. And it's all got to do with the confidence thing. Yeah. And I totally agree with you on that, totally. But some people take it to the extreme.
Oh, absolutely.
And this is where you have to...
That's where the balance comes into it.
The balance has to come in, you know?
You know, the balance has to come into it. And I mean, there's selfish love, there's unrequited love, there's all the various aspects of love, but we're just talking about primeval love. That's the love of the soul, the love of the self, and to be happy and content with yourself. And then you can share in that love and expand that love. And take the love that's given as freely as you give the love. It's important to be able to take as well as receive.
Yeah, of course.
To receive as well as to give. The energies that are coming in, if you could imagine that the earth that we live in, and say the signs of the zodiac. So if we on planet Earth, then we have the other 12 or 13 planets around us, and then we're revolving around the sun, or we're not revolving around the sun, we're spiraling along in the galactic framework, and we're going through the various constellations. We, around sometime, some people say it happened around 2000, some people say it happened around 2008, we entered a photon field where there are energies coming from the center of the galaxy. And these are bombarding us, and these are giving the Earth energies. Now this happens coincidentally 26,000 years, because it takes that time for the Earth to actually have a galactic year. So a galactic year, say, it takes something around 25 or 26,000 years. So as we traverse the galaxy, we're going through different regions in space. We're going through different energies. And
the photon belt, what I was told, is like a whirlpool in a whirlpool. And we're doing this travelling.
Yes, and some people would even compare it to a black hole. And that maybe we are just being sucked in by this black hole, and this is what's keeping us going, this is what's keeping us travelling or traversing in the galaxy. But the energies that we're being bombarded with at the moment are sending us divine, powerful energies that will uplift us and possibly change our DNA and our chromosomes and everything like that. Because you mentioned earlier on about Darwin's theory of evolution. Nothing can evolve without something happening from the outside. So we cannot evolve to the next level of understanding, whether it's we are three-dimensional beings, and if we're going to the fourth, fifth, or sixth, or 10th dimension, we cannot evolve without getting something from the outside, whether that's a scientific help or whether it's a manipulation of some kind. We need it to evolve onto the next level. So that's what's happening, and the Mayans tell us that this is what all 2012 is all about, that the 21st of December 2012 is the center point where all of these energies are going to be coming in, and we have to be susceptible, and we have to decide ourselves that we want to take it.
You're talking now about the ascension.
Yes.
And because we talk about the Christ consciousness, and we have to be awake to the Christ consciousness. That's what we need to be. And even if it's only a few hours before this energy comes in, that's good enough to be awake. Now, they wanted there was supposed to be a certain percentage of us to be open-minded and awake to what's going on. And that's happening on a daily basis. It's phenomenal. So what you're saying is there's a convergence of energies in December 2012, because we hear a lot about this ascension. And I was looking at a website the other day about it. And people queried it, and this is just one opinion from a guy who obviously was doing some channeling and getting information on the whole ascension thing. And this is what I was looking at on the internet and just looking at websites and getting people's opinions. So take this for whatever way you want to take it. But what will happen is, apparently you will be asked whether you want to ascend or not, and the ascension will be to the fifth dimension, which is to be a crystalline, and because the fifth dimension is a dimension of light, so you go to a crystalline rather than a carbon-based life form. Okay, so you can either ascend, or if you don't ascend, you will go to another 3D world, but not on this planet, because we've knackered this planet. Basically, we've destroyed it. While the radiation is going to have to take probably a few million years, a few thousand years to sort itself out. And you'll go to that 3D world, but it'll be nothing like Earth, because none of what happened here is going to be allowed to happen there. Also, people who won't be allowed, who aren't awake, will go to the 3D world, and there they will learn about the awakening, and then they can decide whether they want to ascend or not. Now, this sounds very airy-fairy. It does sound airy-fairy. But then again, we don't know, because there's so much we don't know about. So the whole idea behind this is there's no harm being a skeptic, but just keep an open mind and put it on the shelf and keep it there. Steve,
can I just ask? I mean, we spoke about this during the week, and we were comparing. I won't say we're two old men, but we were comparing our aches and pains, because Alan had come across some information, which kind of said that while this process and the planets are aligning and these changes are beginning to happen, that we may notice more aches, pains, headaches, and so on and so forth. And I mean, if this is all part and parcel of it, and we're experiencing these aches and pains, it kind of sounds like this whole ascension process is kind of going to be a little bit painful.
Well, I don't think it's painful. Apparently the all aches and pains thing is all about the DNA changes that are actually currently taking place in our bodies. Because also you will feel a level of sadness, because the sadness is all about moving from one energy to another energy. You're leaving the old paradigm and you're going to a new paradigm, and that's about the sadness. And it's been reported that some people feel that they want to go home. And it's not thoughts of suicide, it's not suicidal thoughts, it's just, I've had enough of this 3D world, I want to go back now.
Would that kind of mean that when a Buddha, or when the little creature that becomes a butterfly, that I can't think of having a brain moment here at the moment. Caterpillar, oh my God. Does that mean that the caterpillar, when he goes into his cocoon, would he feel sadness, and would he go through this as well?
I don't know. They didn't talk about that, so I can't really comment on that. They're only talking about the human experience.
Right.
Now, David Wilcox talked about this wave change that's taken place, and he actually experimented with this in a laboratory where they transferred the DNA from a salamander to a frog, or maybe it was the other way around, but they transferred the DNA without the two of them actually being together in the same tank to prove the point that DNA can change without actually being together. But
it has to have a frequency.
Yeah.
And there has to be a connection through the frequency. And just to go, the analogy about the butterfly and the caterpillar, that's different than what we're going through, because a caterpillar metamorphizes into the butterfly, whereas we are ascending into a different realm of understanding. Now, when we're in this room here, or when we're in the studio, we have radio stations all around us, but we're tuned into one radio station. What's happening in 2012 and coming up to, and it's not just going to be instantaneous. It's a lead up to it. It's not going to happen just like this bang. There's a lead up to it and there's a lead down from it, and our body is changing. It's funny you should say about the pains, because I don't know whether you saw me moving my legs there, because I find now I just can't sit for any long periods of time before my knees start creaking and my ass starts getting sore and sitting on it.
Stand up if you want with the mic.
No, but I mean, this is something, and I mean, you talk about the headaches, and the pressure is such at the moment that some people are more susceptible to it than others, and that some people are more susceptible to the energies and the positive energies and the negative energies, because for every positive there's a negative. And maybe the pains that we're going through are the negatives. And it's a bit like, if you put a mic too close, and a mic is finely tuned to the radio receiver that you're emitting the signal from, but if you put it too close to the source, you're going to get this pitching, squealing, pitch voice. And this is sometimes, if we take too many energies in, we're feeling the pain because we're too close to the source, so we have to take a step back. So we have to do it gently, and we have to meditate and be in a place where we're just taking in small amounts of the energy at the same time. We're in Meath here, and in Meath we have Newgrange. Now, Newgrange, most people know, is where the winter solstice happens on the 21st of December. So on the morning of the 21st of December, the sun enters the inner chamber, and it's the only time of the year that it actually enters. Now, that happens every year. So what are we going through now? We're going through a galactic new year. So all of the energies are going to enter us at a precise time of the 21st of December 2012. These are the energies. But if we're not in Newgrange, if we're not susceptible, if we don't know what's happening, we're not going to realize that we have to do something. So we have to do something here. What do we have to do? We have to think. We have to make conscious decisions. Is this what I want? And it's a choice that we must make for ourselves. Do we want it, or are we happy with our lives?
Yeah.
Are we? If we're happy with our lives, so that's our life will go on. But those of us who aren't happy with our lives, we will progress to the next level. That isn't to say that we're going to leave anybody behind. We're not, because in our reality, all the love that we have and all the people that love us are going to be there with us.
Question on that. And I always kind of ask this question about the whole ascension process. If what the guy is talking about and he was channeling and they said, you will be asked, do you want to ascend? Yes or no? What does that mean? What does ascend mean? Does that mean that we will die and then ascend? Or will we physically just start changing there and then and ascend? I just have this burning question to find out what that ascend means. Do we start, materializing or changing there and then from our human form, or are they saying, well, you'll be selected, so if you're going to ascend, that means you have to die. And when you die, then obviously your energy, your spiritual body will then ascend. So that means we're putting our name down to die, like our physical body, or is it going to happen while we're alive, and our bodies just start changing?
Okay, can I explain that with another analogy? That that there's a saying in Reiki that we create our own destiny. We actually decide ourselves what our future is going to be by our thought process. So that if we think positive things happen. If we think negative things happen. So can you take that a step further and just imagine that when you go to bed at night and you dream, and you wake up from that dream, and you say, oh, was that dream, or am I dreaming now? Was that reality, or is this reality? So bring that another step forward, and you say, okay, coming up to 2012, you will be given the choice. You will say, what do I want to do? But then, just imagine then, that when you get this burst of energies, that you will then have the ability to just travel on in your world that you have created for yourself, and that all the people that love you will go along with you, and that this world could be exactly the same, except that the love and the vibration and the frequency is completely different for you than it is for everybody else, and that you will leave behind in another world, in another existence, the people who don't want to travel with you. Does that make sense to you?
But are we talking physical?
I'm talking physical, yeah.
So we'll be still in the same life. It's just an energy change and how we think. It's the path we take.
You're going to be in the same house, but you're going to be living in a different room.
Right.
That's kind of difficult to comprehend.
That's kind of difficult to comprehend.
It is.
So we're going to be in the same house, but in a different room.
In a different room.
Well,
as we are at the moment.
That normally happens when I have an argument.
As we are, you see, and what are we? We're made up of atoms and molecules, right? So, I mean, in a conventional life, as we're living at the moment, when this body dies, we say the spirit lives on. So the essence of Deg, of who Deg is, lives on. So it leaves the body and it goes on into the ether. And then what happens? We don't know. So we assume this is what happens, and some people believe in reincarnation, and you come back and as somebody else, or you inhabit some other body. So say if we don't die, so say we still retain this body, but that we go forward and we have this transformation and we are much healthier, loving beings in the same existence but in a different environment. Can you understand that?
Yeah, I think, just talking about this is a fascinating subject, and we can talk an awful lot about it, and I love talking about it.
Mm-hmm.
But because of my background being an IT guy, my head is grounded in logic, and I look at things, and I'm an open-minded skeptic, if that's the way I approach things. And I will put things on the shelf, like we'll sit in the fence and things. If this happens, and we get this request, I'll be number one in the queue. I'll be ascending. I'll be going. But, just that little part of me is saying, is this just New Age mumbo-jumbo? Or is there some kind of foundation to what we're talking about? I mean, I'd love for this to be really, really, for it to happen. I know the energies are changing. Scientifically, things are happening in the universe. We know that. Science has come back and said there's a lot going on. And for me, I think if this is going to happen, it'll be fantastic for everybody. But I have to kind of sit on the fence with it, because it's so kind of, I'm just concerned that there might be in the back of my mind just a bit of kind of New Age programming in there somewhere,
Well, of course, I mean, that's understandable, and I mean, nobody can say with any definitive yay or nay, this is truth, because we don't know. So what we're going on, we're going on our gut feeling. We're going on our understanding of what's going on. And I mean, there's nothing to stop anybody from writing a book in the morning or going on a radio station and saying, this is the way it is, this is the dogma as laid down, it's going to happen. That's wrong. You can't do that, because we simply don't know. So we're assuming, as educated beings, of going through as much reading and writing and going into the history of humanity and listening to our inner self, because as we have the consciousness of humanity, we also have our own consciousness, because we've come from someplace and we're going someplace else. So I always say to my clients when they're having a healing or a treatment or something like that is, you must ask for what you want. So the last thing at night, just sit on the side of your bed and you say, okay, thank you, universe, for what I've done today. Thank you for all the gifts that I've received. Now, I have this little problem. How am I going to solve it? And just put it upstairs and say, okay guys, you're up there. how should I do, or what should I do, or how should I deal with this, or can you give me any guidance there? And ask for that guidance and just see what comes back to you, and you'll be amazed.
Well, funny enough, I am one of these guys that speak to myself when there's a problem. Now, they say that's me or people speaking to their higher self.
Yes.
So you're saying, I've got this problem, what can I do? And then the information sometimes comes back and says, this is, oh, yeah, okay.
Why didn't I think of that before?
Exactly.
You didn't think of that before because you didn't ask for the help.
Exactly. So I think it is important to ask for help. And my higher self is saying, let's go to a musical break. And let's take a break for now. This song is, if you have kids in the room, cover their ears. There's one or two swear words in it, but we were asked to play this song. It's from a chap called Chris Geo, and it's called New World Order. So we'll be back after this.
Give us a call on 046 927 1212.
Predicted what the dot-com bubble before it happened, the real estate bubble and the crash before it happened.
He predicted the stock market crash of 1987.
One World Chronicle and Celtic Gold are proud to present the #1 trends forecaster, Gerald Celente. November the 6th, Dublin, the Gibson Hotel. For further information and tickets, go to oneworldchronicle.com or celticgold.eu.
Oh, we're back, and that little track there you heard was Chris Geo and New World Order. Alan.
Okay, and just to let you know that Gerald Celente will be over here, and you can get the information from the website One World Chronicle. If you Google that, I think it's oneworldchronicle.ie or .com. Type it in if you want to go and see Gerald Celente. Right, before the break, we were talking about the aches and pains that we're feeling. Now, I'm definitely, feeling aches and pains. I don't know whether it's because of the weather or whatever, but I'm not normally like this. I'm normally fine, but for some reason, I'm suffering a few aches and pains, and Steve is as well, which is, and a few people have reported the same thing. Now, it could be a coincidence, but I'm not, no, it's just too much of a coincidence,
Well, come here, this morning, I should have said this earlier, but this morning I was sitting back in the armchair, having a bit of a relaxation moment, and my wife was in, and she was doing a spot of ironing, and she just met, now, I've had some aches and pains in my arms, for a couple of weeks. They come and go, and she came in to me and she said, I can't do any more of that ironing. She said, I've aches and pains in both my arms. And I said, well, that's strange, I've got the very same thing. And I said, I know from speaking with Alan has been experiencing some odd aches and pains as well.
Okay.
So, coincidence?
Yeah, but will she, your wife probably might not be open up to what we're talking about?
She wouldn't be familiar with what we're speaking about, no.
No, okay. No, it's just, I thought I'd mention that because some people might get them and not be aware what might be the cause of them, but we don't know for sure, but we probably know by the 21st of December. What do you think is going to happen? Do you think we're going to have climatic air changes as well that's going to go on?
Well, that's happening already. I mean, you mentioned earlier the amount of earthquake upticks. You talked about the volcanic upticks. And just look at the weather. I mean, look at what happened in Spain last week, where Irish people who were on holidays were completely flooded out of their apartments, and their cars swept away, and they were abandoned on the top floor of their apartment for 8 or 10 hours. And more of these events are happening throughout the world. And I mean, the mainstream media is not covering this. So you have to go on YouTube. You have to find out exactly what's going on. And there are great programs on YouTube out there, and there are an awful lot of negative programs on YouTube. So you have to be discerning. You have to decide, okay, is this somewhat realistic, or is it a con, or is it really going to happen? But you use what you have in your little noggin, as the Christian brothers used to tell me when I was in school, and use your own intelligence and decide for yourself, what's right and what's wrong. And if there are, 4 or 5 people telling you what's going on, you say, okay, that may be a possibility. But where there are thousands of people telling you about the same events, where you have thousands of events happening, I mean, the whole of Nigeria was underwater there last week. You have the Philippines being bombarded with tropical storms. You have Japan being bombarded with tropical storms. You have Brisbane at the moment in the eye of a tropical storm. You have, the Gulf of Mexico, where you have huge sinkholes being caused on the mainland, where the salt domes are just collapsing willy-nilly. So the event that we're talking about has actually started to happen. Now, people talk about global warming. It's not global warming, it's climate change. And it's happening not only on this planet, but on all of the other planets. Now, this again has not been handled by the mainstream media, so you have to go elsewhere and find it. But Pluto, Mars, Saturn, all of these planets, they're all heating up to the same extent. And it's not because the Martians are driving around in SUVs, getting green diesel and putting it into the environment. It's not. Maybe they are.
Maybe they know something we don't know.
Exactly. So, it's not only happening. And you have the magnetic north is shifting at the moment. You saw the ice melt in the Arctic, and you saw the build-up of ice in the Antarctic. Now, that's not global warming. In global warming, everything is going to melt at the same point in time. So that if you have opposite ends of the planet and opposites are happening, well then, it's climate change. It's not global warming.
And they say the closer you are to the equator, the less you'll experience it. Because if there's a pole shift, and if there is any physical changes to the Earth or the plates, they say that the countries that are closer to the poles will experience more of a climatic change than countries that are nearer the equator, for obvious reasons, because they're in the centre.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was just obviously looking at the map and looking at Ireland and doing a couple of measurements and stuff. So, we had Stuart Ludlow on the show, and Stuart talked, and we asked him about it, and he said that he reckons we're going to be going into another ice age.
Well, I don't know. Nobody can say that with any certainty. But to go back to what you're saying about the equatorial regions, yes, you don't have tides on the equator. You have to go into the northern hemisphere, and the more northerly aspect you have, well, then the higher the difference between high tide and low tide. The same in the southern region. So obviously we're sort of halfway between north and south, and we're experiencing at the moment. Anybody who's near a beach at the moment, if you just go for a walk or a daily walk on the beach, and you'll see the sudden changes there. You'll see the difference in the tides, you'll see the difference in the sands, you'll see the difference in the shale, and the sea is not operating as it normally does operate. And these are small little changes. The weather patterns, look at the day we had yesterday. Look at the days we had last week. Complete contrasts. So, the seasons are completely unaffected. To go back to old prophecies and stuff like that, there's a prophecy of Malachi. He was a saint in ancient Ireland, and he says, the end of the world will come, all this doom and gloom, and you won't know the difference in the seasons other than the leaves and the trees will turn green, and that water will boil in the centre of a table. And he goes on about all of these prophecies. But we're actually at that time now. So we are changing. But to go back to the energies and the pains that we're experiencing the birth pains of a change of reality for ourselves. And the energies that are coming in at the moment, we have to take them in and suck them in and experience them as they're happening. And energy is something that you can't sort of put in a jar and put on a counter unless it's electric energy or oil generated capacity or something like that. But the energy that I'm talking about is the energy that's actually in the environment that we're breathing. We are breathing energy generators. So just think of that at the moment. Some people who are skeptical and say, oh, this is all humbo-jumbo, this is all this, that and the other. There's no such thing as energy. We are energy. Yeah. We are energy beings.
Let's look at the science of it, because I normally talk to people about the science.
Mm-hmm.
Right, we are made, quantum physics has now come out with so many things, who has disproved a lot of things that we thought were, that was the studied science. And now quantum physics has turned around and said, no, that's wrong. They're actually agreeing with a lot of what, from a spiritual point of view, an energetic point of view, which was said years and years ago before quantum physics was studied. But we are atoms, and we are all atoms, and we all vibrate on a different frequency. Okay? And basically, so when you see the likes of a singer sing and she breaks the glass, she's basically singing on a frequency that's the same vibration the glass, and that's why the glass shatters. So Rael Raymond Wright, who cured cancer in the early 30s, his machine, he knew that the whooping cough virus vibrated on a frequency. So all germs and disease they operate on a frequency. And what Rael Raymond Wright did was he found out the frequency of the whooping cough and then used the signal generator, turned it up to actually get rid of that, to kill the actual virus, not affecting all the other cells, because all the other cells were vibrating on a different frequency. Now, it's funny that you talk about energy, because there's a lot of people, I won't say a lot of people, but I have come across people in the truth movement who say they're awake. But if they can't see it, touch it, smell it, feel it, then they won't believe it. And they don't seem to understand about this energy thing. They don't seem to understand we are energy. We're all one collective consciousness. And it's worse. I think it's easier waking somebody up who's not awake than trying to wake up somebody who thinks they're awake. You know, so for people who are awake, who just don't, they only see the physical, I would recommend going and studying the energy, because, you know, trying to wake somebody up who kind of poo-poos all the kind of stuff that we talk about, and then you give them the evidence. I mean, energy, you can have evidence on energy as well. I mean, Reiki is a typical example.
Reiki is a typical example. Before we even go on the Reiki, say we are energy beings. We are alive. So why are we alive? We don't plug ourselves into the socket and download a whole load of ESP every day, because we're creating the energy ourselves. We're sucking it in. We're breathing it in through the oxygen. We're breathing it into our lungs. The lungs and the capillaries are sending all of that oxygen and that generating energy around our body. Nikola Tesla, anybody who has any thoughts on, or negative thoughts on energy and stuff like that, just take the time and look up Nikola Tesla, who was around in the 1920s and the 1930s, before he was suppressed by the moguls that be, and they wouldn't allow him to continue. He was able to prove, and he was actually able to take energy out of the environment. He was generating electricity to be freely available to the people, and you would just have an antenna on your house, and he would have an energy capacitor in every town and village in the country, and you would just have an energy receptacle on your roof, and you would take in the energy as you would need it. Free energy for everybody. And that's there. That's the energy of the environment. That's the energy of the earth. That's the energy that's in the crystals. And we are crystalline in form. And we need to be in balance. And if we're not in that balance, just take the time yourselves, and don't believe anything I say, or don't believe anything anybody else says. Research it yourself. There's enough information out there.
Definitely. And obviously the experiment that Nikola Tesla is doing is going to pull the energy down from the ionosphere. But obviously J.P. Morgan was funding it, and when he realised that Tesla wanted to give it away for free, he pulled the funding, and then they didn't go on.
And that's still happening today to other inventors who are there and who want to give free energy. You see the guy who invented the internet, and now they're trying to suppress the internet. And you have a guy in the Keshe Foundation in Belgium, and they're trying to give free energy advice and free energy products. And shortly after, they announced a press conference, and they invited all of the leaders of the known world to a conference where they gave this energy free. What did Obama do? He signed by executive order saying that no new devices could be promoted or sold or published in America without first getting governmental approval.
That's incredible. And we know that Obama is looking to try and have a kill switch for the internet.
Absolutely.
Which is ridiculous. You know, really is. The internet, they thought they could use the internet as a propaganda arm.
Absolutely.
And it's backfired. And people have just, the information's been passed around, it's been phenomenal. And even what's her name, Hillary Clinton, has said publicly, and we have a video of it on our site, I believe, that she said that they're losing the propaganda war. So if she's actually admitting that they're losing the propaganda war, that means they're using propaganda to convince people of other things. So that in itself should kind of convince people that you're not being told the truth. by what's out there by the media. It's being controlled. And propaganda was one of the main things they used during World War II.
To pick up what you were saying there about Reiki and the skeptics amongst us, I would put a challenge out there. I will offer my services free to two listeners today who are skeptical, and if they are willing to come for a session, I will show them how energy works.
Yeah, cool. Well, that'd be brilliant. Yeah,
okay.
Definitely. And give them proof.
And give them proof.
Well, we'll get all your details at the end of the show when we go through that, definitely. I just think that people in the truth movement who aren't aware of energy should start studying it and don't knock it. Remember, we've always said at OYM, have a fluid belief system. That way, you're taking out the ego. The ego's not involved, because what we know today might change next week, because we might find something out to go against what we know today. But as of today, this is what we know. So we don't have any problem changing our belief system if we find out something new. What happens is our ego generally stops us. People that have a belief system, their ego stops you from taking on new information because they're so stuck in their belief system, what they believe. So if you get away from that, you take the ego out of it, then obviously you're open to so much more information. You don't have to agree with everything, but you just take it on board, listen to it. If it resonates with you, great. If it doesn't, then just put it to one side. But don't say, I don't believe that, or I don't like that, or I... Go and research it, go check it out. But again, here's the thing that I've been kind of looking into about the flow of energy with people. You have givers and takers. And takers will use as little energy as they can, and givers will use more energy, especially if you look at relationships. Because the way we are from a psychological point of view, we are programmed to take the least path of resistance. Maybe because in the Neanderthal days we needed to keep the energy to run after the mammoths to kill them, I don't know. But this is fundamental in people. And I've seen it, and I've been studying this, and there has been studied research in America got to do with this. And the difference between givers and takers and in relationships. Now, it's another subject I could go into psychologically, but I'm not going to talk about it tonight because we're talking about other stuff. But energy is so important. Steve?
Yeah, just a comment on the chat facility there from Lord Vapor. I just thought it might be kind of appropriate to read it out at this moment in time. Lord Vapor, Deg, he says, I believe the healing powers of Reiki come from a dark source. I have personal experience to qualify that statement. I'm just wondering what your thoughts will be on that.
It hasn't been my experience, so I can't comment on what Lord Vapor experienced. It is possible, depending on who his practitioner was, that the practitioner wasn't grounded, and that a dark source came into his session, which affected him. I can't comment any further on it than that. But I know that most Reiki practitioners and Reiki masters like myself have to go through a very arduous sort of training regime and a grounding before every session. And because there are positive energies out there, there are also negative energies out there. And unless one grounds themselves positively to a positive energy, then the other entities can come in and give a very bad outcome.
Now, one of the things that we talked about was, we mentioned on the show, we'll probably get an expert in to talk about this, is the jinn. You know about the jinn? And they're, interdimensional beings that have been around. Very big belief system in the Middle East regarding energies taking over your bodies and stuff like that.
Yes, I
like
tend
the genie in the lamp is kind of the story.
Yeah.
There is a question here. I want to put it out to Steve and you, Deg. And one of the people on the TNS forum said, you can always tell when someone isn't awake when they criticise others for not really being awake or as supposedly awake as they think they are, which they are not. Well, I'm sorry, Kazar, but I think you're completely wrong. We're not criticising anybody. We're just saying that you have to have a fluid belief system. And what happens is people have their ego, and their ego stops them from taking on board new information. So that's the issue. So if if we want to talk about the spiritual side, and people turn around and say, oh, it's all mumbo jumbo, well, that's fine. That's your opinion. But what's your opinion based on?
Doesn't that kind of go back to what I can't remember who it was that said it, but entertaining a thought without, or an idea without actually believing it. I mean, that's kind of a fluid belief system. I mean, there's what we were saying about the Rubik's Cube scenario. If someone is awake, in my opinion, and other people's opinions as well, they're like one side of a Rubik's Cube where they'll kind of believe when you tell them about the likes of chemtrails and geoengineering, they'll believe that. But then if you tell them something else about maybe, I don't know, the spirit world, or that side of things, they'll kind of say, oh no. But that person they're on the road, they're on the right road, but they're not fully awake. And I think it was it Marcus McKeown?
Marcus, yeah.
Yeah, he basically said that, we're not telling people what to believe, we're just getting all the information, we're putting it out there. People can take in the information, store it. If it doesn't resonate, put it on the back burner. Maybe at some other point in time it will, and then maybe you'll have one side of a cube, the Rubik's Cube, and then further on your journey you'll eventually get the other side until you have the whole thing complete. But I mean, we certainly don't tell people, we don't criticise people if they don't believe what we're saying, because we're not trying to convince anybody of anything. We're just accumulating information and just giving it out, because that's the road that we found ourselves on. And
sorry, Deg, as usual, the people who have an opinion, I mean, we have an opinion on things, but a lot of the time we try and base it on either our own experiences, what we've seen, or if we hear something, we'll just say, well, this is what we've heard, we don't know how true it is. But if you're going to have an opinion and you're going to turn around and say, oh, it's all mumbo jumbo, what's it based on? What's that mumbo jumbo based on? I mean, I've had spiritual experiences, okay, and I've worked with energy, and I've seen energy do things. Now, for me, it's subjective, because when I had these experiences, there was other people there, it wasn't just me. But they're not here in the room tonight, so they can't talk about it.
Yeah.
But if other people who've had experience with energy can turn around and say, yes, I believe that energy's there because I've experienced it and I've had experience with it. Now, if they can come out and say, yes, so we've done that, and then somebody turns around and says, oh, I think it's mumbo jumbo, and they didn't have any experience, what does that tell you? Again, it goes back to, tell us, what's your opinion based on? Don't come out and make an assumption, or don't come out and say, oh, it's mumbo jumbo, or it's unless you have something to back it up. That's just ignorance. I'm sorry.
Can I come in there on the belief system? And there's probably, and I'm probably answering a query there that was on the chat room about the Raeilan movement. And that's what separated me from the Raeilan movement, is the belief structure. And it's what separated me from the Catholic Church and other organisations that I learned to do without. And I learned in my own spiritual awakening that you can't have a belief structure. You cannot believe in any one source of information. What I say today is, I don't have a belief structure, I have an understanding. Given my understanding at the moment, this is what I understand things to be. That may change. That may change as I get other information. And when you're in touch with yourself and with your higher self, you're asking all the time. So you're forgetting about your ego. You don't know everything. We don't know everything. So we're open to being guided. We're open to getting the proper information and understanding then as a result, this is what will happen, or this is what may happen. Because even things that I'm talking about now may or may not happen, because as we all know, things are subject to change. So that in the divine plan, things may not always happen as we want them to do, because other people are coming along and they're saying, okay, this is not my reality. This is what I want to happen for us. This is what I want to happen for humanity. So what those of us who want a particular thing to happen in our lives, what we want in our understanding is, we must come to the fore and say, this is what I would like. This is what I want to project. This is my reality, and this is my understanding. So it's important that we sort of leave all the hard and fast belief structures and belief organizations behind, and be at one with yourself. You don't need any organization to tell you what to do or where you want to go. Just ask your higher self. And when you ask of yourself, you'll get all the information you want.
Of course. We're not, anything we say in OYM, it's information that we've come across and we put out there. It's up to the individual, it's up to the listener to make up their own mind. We don't filter anything, we send it out as we do, and you make up your own mind, and if it resonates with you. We're not trying to give you our opinion. If it's our, we give you our opinion on what we think of it, but that doesn't mean we want you to have the same opinion. We want you to make up your own mind, and you decide. And there's a chap in TNS who said that he gains a lot of info, he collects a lot of information, and as we all do, every day we collect information, and we get things that might contradict other things that we come across.
But that's how we learn. This is an information technology exchange program.
Yes.
This is what we're here. We're exchanging information. We're receiving as well as giving. And I mean, your arse is so full of splinters. I don't know how you can sit down.
And Steve as well. Exactly. Because we have to sit in the fence. Because again, my logical brain, as I said earlier, we hear an awful lot of people who channel or talk to people and everything else, and there's a lot of contradictory information. So we have to sit in the fence, and we take the information on board, we put it on the shelf and go, that's interesting. We can study it, we can understand it. Doesn't mean we have to agree with it, but we can study it and understand it, because that's part of our intelligence to be able to do that. But if you don't even have the ability to actually take the information in and at least contemplate it, then there's obviously an issue there that needs to be addressed, because, you know, we don't learn unless we go and do the research. When, you know, I've said before on the show, when people say, oh, the older you get, the wiser you get. I'm sorry, I disagree with that. I really do. I think you only really learn, you learn organically, but you won't really learn a lot unless you don't go out and find the information. And especially if you break away from your comfort zone. That's when you really start learning, when you break out of your comfort zone and do things that you wouldn't normally do. That's when you really start learning. So all these things, you know, are very important to the whole learning process. And the one thing that I've noticed, and I'm sure Deg has and Steve has, is that since we've been on this journey, we've become like a sponge for knowledge. I don't know about you guys, but I'm just interested. I don't want to deal with trivial stuff. I don't want to deal with the kind of the crap that's on TV and all that kind of stuff. I just want good conversation and good, you know, a good talk, knowledge, information. Doesn't even have to be, we might turn around and have a different debate on what you believe and what I believe. But if you're, you know, open to it, it will be a discussion. It won't be an argument. Because if we're open enough and we have a fluid belief system, we can take that information on board. And it's not all about defending your belief system, because if it's fluid, it won't matter to you.
It won't matter.
You take the ego out of it.
It's all about information exchange. And just to answer a query there from Lord Raider about the Raeilan movement, the Raeilan movement today, in essence, has been in existence since 1974. It is now in over 101 countries. The primary objective of the movement today is to get enough money to build an embassy where the Elohim can land upon invitation from the planet Earth, and give freely the benefit of their technology and their advancements over the years. It has approximately 80,000 members worldwide. It's a vibrant organisation, and you know, if you want to find out more onto it, just look up rael.org. That's www.rael.org.
Well, we're not going to go down to the religious belief system, because, you know, my religion's better than your religion type of thing. You know, religion in itself is...
it's for the individual, and that's why I say you have to do the research yourself, and you have to go out there and find it. Exactly,
and there's a lot of guys on TNS there that I have to agree with. You know, one person said that he's reached about 1% of the truth or the information that's out there. And I agree with him. There's so much that we don't know and don't understand and have been hidden. And every day is a learning curve, and we learn. But having the ability to learn and take on the information and not let the ego get in the way, that's the trick. So if you can push your ego aside, and you know, ego is very important for all of us. It's in us, and you know. But you have to learn. It's what drives us. But you have to learn to control it, and you have to learn when the ego kicks in. And because if you start, like again defending the belief system, that would be the ego kicking in. So where you can put that to one side. Now, okay, I'm not going to let that happen. I'm going to open my mind and take this on board. I'm not going to be judgmental. I'll check it out myself and research it. But not to just turn around and say, no, you're talking area derriere because I disagree with that, without actually going and doing the research yourself if you've never come across it before. And that's the problem with a lot of people when you try and wake them up. 90% of the, let's say 99% of the people, when you try and wake them up, if they turn around and say, oh yeah, that's all mad, that stuff, and you think, well, how much research have you done? Chances are 99% of them haven't done any research. They will just, turn out what the media tells them to turn out. Oh, you're a conspiracy theorist.
But essentially, I agree with what you're saying, but the people who would kind of poo-poo everything that you would say and say, no, it's all BS, it's not really their fault. I would say to a certain degree, there's a lot of forces at work here, namely the likes of television and other things that we've mentioned, the likes of the water fluoridation. I can already hear people saying, oh, here they go again talking about fluoridation. But when you think about it, there's a lot of people who there are people who want to keep us dumbed down. They want us to not kind of grow outside a certain level, and then they want us to watch the TV, and it's just kind of to keep us in a belief system. That's my opinion. They want to keep us in a belief system that they have designed for us, and so we won't grow into what we can grow.
Exactly.
And that belief system is genuinely based on fear.
It is, yeah, exactly. And my philosophy is the more I know, the more I realise I don't know.
Yes. Yeah.
Because the more I learn, the more I look at it and go, the hole gets deeper, and there's more information, and you're just learning and learning and learning. So, and that's what I enjoy, learning new stuff, or speaking to somebody who knows a different angle on it, and then talking about the possibilities. I think I said this before on the show. I was talking to a neighbour of mine who's quite open, and the two of us were talking about what if, time travel and stuff like that. And I was speaking to another friend of mine, and I was saying to her, you're talking about time travel, and she said, what benefit of that is to you? What benefit? And I said, well, it's no benefit. It's just the ability to be able to sit down and talk with somebody about the possibilities of something. It doesn't have to be a benefit. It's just one of them topics of conversations to open the mind and say, what if?
Yeah, but when you're talking to anybody, what you have to do is you're talking to two people. You're talking to the individual and you're talking to the ego. So that if you can get rid of the ego and just talk to the individual, then they're more receptive. And maybe they're more positive, maybe they're more negative, but it's a positive negativity. And if you can give your viewpoint, and that you can sort of say, okay, well, this is what I've learned, and this is my understanding. But if you get somebody who's just completely negative, there's no way you can actually get through there. So the ego has taken over there.
Yeah.
Say, okay, that's lovely. Thank you very much. Have a nice day.
Have a nice day.
Have a nice day.
Yeah, that's the trouble. The ego gets in the way. And one of the things we talk about before, and we've talked about this in seminars we've done, is some people should never be woken up. Okay, you could turn around and argue the point that maybe they should be. If they wake up to the fact that the government is corrupt and you shouldn't pay the household charge, that might be just enough for them. That just might be enough. Don't talk to them about the Illuminati or the New World Order or whatever. That will just blow their mind. But if they just know that, well, I'm not happy about the government and I'm not paying the £100 household charge, that might be enough for them to, get the ball rolling. And if they go a little bit further down the road, then fine. And if that's where they stay, then that's okay as well.
What's breaking my bubble at the moment, I don't know whether it's affecting anybody else or not, is when you're driving along in the car and you're listening to the radio, and suddenly there's an advert is there about your pay and file by the 31st of October, and then there's another advert about your TV license, and then there's another advert about your €100 household charge, and all of these finish off by, it's the law.
Yep.
Do it. This is really aggravating me at the moment, and I'm trying to remain positive, and I'm wondering why. But who said the law is right?
Yeah.
Yeah. We have elections here all the time, and we have excuse me, we probably have a 63% turnout. And of that 63% turnout, the government properly, and the government of the day would probably get about 30%. which means that 60% of the people don't want the government that we have at any given time. So what we have to do, as well as educating people about possibly what's going to happen in 2012 and about the energies and about the freedoms that we should be enjoying and that we're not enjoying, is that the importance of voting. Each of us has a responsibility in life. We have one main responsibility, and that is to breathe. And if we don't breathe, we die. The second is to vote. And if we don't vote, we cop out of the system. And we're not entitled to even object to it. And you'll always find, I think, and it's only my opinion, if you get people on criticising the government and giving out about various things, that 99% of the time they are the people who didn't vote in the last election. So the importance of voting is very important.
The trouble is, who do you vote?
Well, yourself, if you can't find anybody else.
But you can't vote for yourself.
You can if you go forward.
Yeah, but some people don't do. I would say independents. I'd say, look, pick an independent and vote for them. But the main parties, it's amazing how there's families out there who, because their great-great-grandfather voted for Fianna Fáil or Fine Gael or whatever, they are brainwashed all the way down the family that they'll keep voting for this party, no matter what they do or how bad they are.
Well, if I was in power in the morning, the first thing I'd do is I'd ban all political parties.
Well, yeah.
Because they are who's running the country. It's not the individual TDs, it's not the individual senators, because they're towing the party line, so that the party is taking over.
Well, the problem is that even the governments run the country. It's Europe now. We are. Enda Kenny is the branch manager, as far as I'm concerned, of the division of the European Union, and that's the problem,
Anyway, we've gone away from spiritualism. Sorry.
Okay, we're going down.
Just because it's the law.
Yeah. Okay. That's the political thing.
I'll just say we keep saying switch off the TV. I'll just say, Deg, switch off the radio.
I'll have to
switch off the radio. It's like, why don't you switch off your television set and do something less boring instead?
What do they say? There's a picture on the internet going around. There's a picture of a TV screen. And written like in paint or something on the TV screen, it just says "read" instead. I think that's a good message. I mean, when you listen to the radio, I stopped listening to the radio a long time ago, probably for the same reason that Deg has just described, because every hour you were programmed, you were getting told what to believe on the hour, every hour. This is what you should believe. This is your reality. And then, just in case you might have missed your programming on the hour, you got some highlights on the half hour. So all it was 2 news bulletins every hour, surrounded by a little bit of music and a few ads to even further kind of brainwash you. So yeah, it doesn't interest me at all.
Can I come in there for a little bit, just a little bit on the spiritual side and the importance of water? And I know there's a whole debate about fluoridation and all that, and I'm leaving that aside. I'm just talking about pure crystalline water. The importance of water to the body is vital, and each and every one of us should be taking at least 4 litres of water a day, because all of the energies. I see somebody here swilling some water.
Yeah, nothing like 4 litres.
No, we need to drink at least 4 litres of water today, because if we don't, we get dehydrated, and the energies don't flow as freely within the body as they do. There's a lovely guy on the internet, professor. He's a Japanese professor, Masato, and he's done great theories and studies on water and the benefits of water. And he also talks about water as a living energy, and that you can actually talk to your water and give it a purpose just before you drink it. So that when you take a glass of water, you just bless the water yourself. And everybody can do this. You don't need any special skills, or you don't have to be a priest or a bishop or a pope or a rabbi or any of the other religious.
I think 4 litres is just, you wouldn't do it. You'd
You
probably
would.
do a litre, but for every day 4 litres of water. I mean, when I started taking the MMS, I had a litre bottle of water, and I found even taking the litre bottle all for the day was difficult. Would you believe?
Well, like everything else, I mean, I wasn't a big drinker of water either. And it was Alan and I had a meeting a couple of years ago with Deg, and Deg explained. I want him to go back and explain about blessing the water, because I think it is very interesting about giving it a purpose. But because after the meeting with Deg, I wasn't a big water drinker. It was all soft drinks and all this sort of stuff. But I started introducing water, because it kind of struck a chord and it resonated with me. And I mean, I do drink. I always carry water. It's always there's a bottle of water with me at all times. It's from my own home. It's through my filter. And I found I couldn't. It was tough at first. And when I started doing it, I found I was going to visit in the bathroom, a lot. But after my body started getting used to taking in more water, it was kind of it stayed in my system longer, and I was back to a normal routine, like a bathroom routine, and then I was able to increase it. I mean, at the moment I would probably be in around maybe the best part of 2 litres a day, but I'd say, I mean, Alan, even if you'd done it, if you were to introduce a litre and then down the line introduce 2 litres, you would get used to it.
Yeah, I know water is very, very important.
It's very important. And not in tea now or coffee or anything. Pure water, filtered water.
Well, funny enough you should say that, and water is very good. You always say, I think it was Dr. Lorraine Day and Bernard Bowen saying how important water is, and instead of putting, for women especially, instead of putting the makeup on the outside, put the makeup on the inside, i.e. the water, good for your skin. Now, the other day I was talking to this lady, which her son was autistic, and we got talking about MMS and stuff like that. And she happened to say, purely just out of nowhere, she said, "You've got very good skin." Like, Now, I know my family, my mother has quite good skin anyway, but I do drink water. I don't drink 4 litres, but I do drink water. And that was kind of strange, because you're in the middle of talking about MMS and she just come out and said that. Obviously she said it for a reason, but and she wasn't looking to chat me up, because her husband was right beside her, so it was nothing got to do with that. But yeah, so the water is very important, and I think it does have a purpose. There's a lot more things that we can do with water, and as you say, talk to it, give it a reason, but it's used for an awful lot more, even on the spiritual side. I know that for cleansing negative energies is one way of doing it. And John Edwards, for the people who know John Edwards as a medium, one of the things that he says, if you want to clear negative energies from your house, you get a bowl of water and you leave it on your table overnight, and you say to the water, obviously you attract negative energies. In the morning, you don't put it down the sink, you put it down the toilet and flush it down the toilet. And that's supposed to attract negative energies. Whether it does or not, I don't know, but this is what they say. So, and there is a program on, watch out for Edge Media as well. Edge Media, there is a show on there that a guy who has studied the benefits of water in so many ways. There is a show on that.
There are fantastic benefits. And I mean, when I say 4 litres of water a day, that's at the height of the summer. Now, obviously, in the winter we curtail it. It's best to take water during the daylight hours. You don't take water after sundown, because of the obvious reasons of having to get up and go to the loo in the middle of the night. So during daylight hours, if you drink your water and take your necessary intake of water, and you can bless the water simply just by giving it an intention, and just say, "Bless this water, I give it the intention of giving me purity, of giving me sound mind, of health in my body," and give it that intention. And then if you find a small little piece of quartz crystal and just leave it by your glass of water, that energizes it, and it puts energy into your water, so that you're drinking the water and taking it in. And like Alan says, the bowl of water in the house, and you give it the intention of taking all the negative energy away from your house, and it will just suck it in and just flush it down the loo. It's fantastic.
Yeah, so it can be used for quite a lot, but we're coming to that time now, so what we'll do is we'll just say thanks for Deg for being here in the studio with us, not over Skype, but actually in the studio. We have a few things to finish off with, but Steve, I'll just say thanks, Deg, for being with us in the studio. I'll pass over to Steve, and Steve can do the rundown on the contact information and stuff.
The rundown.
You're more than welcome, lads, and thanks very much for having me.
And do you want to mention the book, what you want to do with that as well? But
yes.
not from you're not doing it from a Raeilan point of view, you're just doing it from if anybody's interested?
Yes, if anybody's interested, I have some Raeilan books, and if you can get in touch with the lads here and through the website, and possibly do a donation to them on their website, and they will post the book out to you.
That's brilliant from Deg. So, not from a religious or conversion point of view.
It's from an information point
Just
of view.
an information point of view, to get another take on what you think of the Raeilan movement and whether it resonates with you or what you think. I have read the book because Deg gave me a copy of it and I found it very interesting. I don't want to run off and join the Raeilan movement or do anything like that, but I just found the book very interesting. It's another take on what Claude Rael thinks is going to happen or what has happened, or our history on Earth. But over to Steve. Steve, you want to?
Okay, well, I'd like to echo, Alan, what you said. I mean, the information that Deg has given, it's been two hours, but I mean, both Alan and I were in Deg's home a couple of years back, and I think we went down for maybe an hour just to have a general chit chat. I think it must have been maybe 3 or 4 hours later we were still there, and we could have spoke all night. I mean, there's a lot of things that I really kind of wish Deg had spoke about tonight. One of them has popped up in the chat room, has done many times over the past couple of months, and that is the whole thing about Nirabu, which as I said, I think I mentioned it last week, I never heard of Nirabu until it was actually Deg who mentioned it to me, and that must be about, I'd say, 2 years ago. But yeah, I mean, it's been a privilege having Deg in the studio, and I mean, if Deg, if you want to maybe have some closing words, we don't want to just kind of cut you off. If you want to maybe wrap up in your own way, and if you have anything that, like a book, DVD, website where people can find out some more information if they're interested.
Sure, thanks for that. No, I mean, I've no spiel or anything that I want to say other than what I've said already, and I can't emphasize enough the importance of energy in our lives, and about spirituality, and about the chakras and balancing ourselves. Now, I have a YouTube site. It's called Degnan. That's TheDegnan, the Degnan on YouTube, and on that you will find an awful lot of information that I find that I've taken off the airwaves and posted as some of my favourites or some as information, and other areas like that, and I hope that you'll find it interesting. If anybody wants to contact me, they can contact me through that site, and if anybody wants to do a bit of Reiki or a bit of healing, and healing energies are fantastic, even if you don't have an ailment. It's just about balancing the chakras, it's about balancing your body, it's about balancing your mind, and if anybody wants any advice for any ailments or anything like that they have, I'd gladly give them. And possibly I will come back again and talk about Nibiru and the cycle in the sky, and Stitchin wrote a lot about it, and he put it down as the 13th planet, and there's an awful lot of information out there, and there's a lot of wrong information out there, and I think we're entering interesting times in the sky at the moment, and as we go into the cycle at the moment where Saturn is becoming dominant in our lives, you'll find a lot of positive energies coming in from the atmosphere, and so just get outside, obviously when there's no chemtrails, and soak in the energies and the positive energies, and enjoy life and enjoy living and enjoy being alive. Thanks, lads.
No problem, Deg. Just to pick up on Lord Vapor, Lord Vapor just mentioned on the chat there that Deg is still promoting the books, and he hasn't addressed any of the teachings which he mentioned for 7 years. Just Lord Vapor, Deg is not so much promoting the book. He's saying if anybody wants a copy of it, they can get a copy through OYM, and the funds, if you buy the book, will go to OYM. So he's not promoting the book. He's just saying if you want a copy of it, you can get it. If you don't have to buy it. It's that simple. And he's not going to talk about the teachings because it's not about the Raeilan movement. We just thought we'd mention it and about Claude Rael, and let you go off and do some studying if you want to, and make up your own mind on what you think, rather than, because one thing we do try and avoid is religion.
Can I just come in there quickly, Lord Vapor? Even if I was still a member of the Raeilan movement, which I'm not, I would not discuss any more than I've discussed, because the Raeilan movement's ethos is never to teach, it is to inform, and the easiest way of informing anybody and to make sure that they all get the same information is by promoting the reading of a particular publication. And that's all I'm doing still today.
Excellent. So that kind of answers that one there. Hopefully that sorts it out. Okay, so for next week, Steve, you're looking at me strange.
Well, you are strange.
Okay.
No.
Well, I have smooth skin.
You do. You're a strange smoothie. Are we going to, just before we kind of wrap up, do we want to let people know about Gerald Salente again? Do you want me to,
just run it again there.
Okay.
You predicted what the dot-com bubble before it happened, the real estate bubble and the crash before it happened.
He predicted the stock market crash of 1987.
One World Chronicle and Celtic Gold are proud to present the #1 trends forecaster, Gerald Salente. November the 6th, Dublin, the Gibson Hotel. For further information and tickets, go to oneworldchronicle.com or celticgold.eu.
Okay, so that's Gerald Salente. Crown Copyright wants to know about getting Gerald on. We are in the process of talking to his people, or our people's talking to his people, and his people don't seem to want to talk to our people. Something like that anyway. So if we can get him on, we will get him on. There is somebody in the background trying to sort that out. So we'll keep you posted and let you know. Just remember that the chemtrail, just for your own information, if you want to go to the YouTube channel and you want to look at the chemtrail video that I shot this morning, it's up there. Just showing you chemtrails. I mean, we see them all the time, but for some reason this morning they were all over the place. So have a look at that and see what you think. And next week's guest we have Paolo Marcus. Now we had Marcus McKeown on the show, and his wife Paola is a Mexican medicine woman, a visionary and mystic, and she apparently has a lot of information about 2012. So we're going to be getting Paola on. I'm going to be talking to her, and we're going to be finding out a lot of things like that. So that's really what's on the cards for next week. Are you up to anything this week, Steve? Anything planned?
Yeah, I'm planning on winning the lotto and going off planet for a while. Yeah. No, it's just going to be same old, Alan. That's what I'm going to be doing. The usual. Yeah,
just answering Lord Vapor. He said, why is religion off the table as a subject and every other thing under the sun is on the table? Because religion just causes arguments. And religion, you know, in my opinion, from my research and what I've read, it causes arguments, and religion is man-made to control man. It's that simple. I think there's a division between God. I think God and religion are two different things. And I think religion's very clever to put God and religion together. And it just, you know, that's why they say don't talk about religion and politics, because it always ends up in an argument. And we've more important things to talk about than worrying about what people's belief systems are. Your belief system is what you believe it to be. We talk about belief systems, but we don't take one particular belief system. And religion, as I say, is just, you know, it does cause arguments, I think. So best leave it. Leave it for another time, or maybe some other channel.
We're not saying it's off the table forever. I mean,
well,
there may come a time when we feel it's important.
Yeah, they may feel a time, but we just have to see, you know. So that's really the news. What time are we now? Well, we've got 3 minutes to go. Okay, so that's what's happening. Don't forget, we have Marcus McKeown's book available to buy on the website. Deg has kindly offered the book from Claude Rael. So we'll get that up on the website as well, and people want to buy a copy of that. Donations will go to OYM. Don't forget to register, as Steve said earlier on in the show, because we'll be sending out emails and keeping you up to date on what's going down. If there's any information you come across, by all means, let us know, email us, and keep us posted. Steve?
Yeah, I've just kind of tic-tac there with Vin on Skype there, and Vin is on his Sweeney tonight. He's on his own, so when you've had enough of us at the 9 o'clock hour, do switch over to TNS Radio and listen to Vin. I'm sure it's going to be very interesting. It usually is.
Loads of information there. Okay, well listen, we'll wrap up and we'll let Vin take over there. So from ourselves, have a good week, stay safe, and we'll try and find out more about these aches and pains. Somebody said that was the barium in the chemtrails that's causing it, but it's only the last few weeks that this has been happening. It's just too uncanny, too coincidental. So we'll have to do a bit more research on that, Steve, I think.
Absolutely.
See what happens. Okay, for myself, from Deg.
Hi, everybody, and good night.
And for myself, Alan James, good night. Stay safe. Have a good week.
And for myself, Stephen George, good night. We'll do it all again next week. Take care. Bye-bye.